So joining us now to break it down is Curtis Ellis. He is the current policy director of America First Policies and former senior policy advisor to President Trump. Curtis, good to see you. Help me break this down, because a lot of conservatives, they feel betrayed by the Federalist Society because a lot of nominees they floated in the past have turned out to be more liberal, leaning more liberal in their picks. And then I would go off to say Chief Justice John Roberts as well in that list as well. So how much trust is there in the Federalist Society as far as picking the next nominee?
The Federalist Society is just one of the voices that's weighing in on these nominees that President Trump has put forward. He's put forward his list of nominees. We expect Joe Biden to do the same. He ought to do the same, but he wants to hide his Supreme Court picks the same way he's hiding. He's not been very transparent. Back in June, he said he would put forward a list of nominees. Remember, candidate Trump did this back in 2016. This is the most open and transparent president in history. He says what he means, and he means what he says, and he tells you what he thinks. Look, we have every reason to be disappointed in Chief Justice John Roberts, and we've seen this over the decades. You had the former Supreme Court Justice Souter, nominated by George H.W. Bush. So many of these justices get on the bench, and they're more concerned about how the New York Times is going to write about them than actually upholding the law, upholding the Constitution, and doing what the Republican senators were elected to do, which is make sure that justices who represent and uphold traditional values from the bench do exactly that. And that's one reason why it's so important that the Republican senators actually move forward with this confirmation. The people elected them to uphold traditional values on the bench. Our Constitution and our way of life is under direct attack from the liberal Democrats, the progressive elements, and they're not just Democrats, the progressive elements of society that want to replace the Constitution with rule by a permanent technocracy. And that's not what people vote for Republicans to do, right? And let me just say one other thing, is the McConnell rule. You hear a mischaracterization of the McConnell rule. Oh, it's unfair to nominate a Supreme Court justice or confirm one in an election year. No, the McConnell rule was in an election year when the president and the Senate are of differing parties, right? Barack Obama was term limited out. We knew there was going to be an election, and we knew that the new president should get to pick who serves on the Supreme Court. Right now, the president and the Senate are the same party. There is no reason to wait.
Let me jump in because one of the points that you made is transparency in announcing the nominees for this seat, and you've seen them come out by President Trump. But former Vice President Joe Biden, as you said, we're hiding his nominees. Here's the reason why. I believe we have sound from Joe Biden stating why he has kept it private. Here's that.
Anyone put on a list like that under these circumstances will be subject to unrelenting political attacks, because any nominee I would select would not get a hearing until 2021 at the earliest. She would endure those attacks for months on end without being able to defend herself.
Curtis, your thoughts on that, given that reasoning for it?
This is another case of projection. The Democrats talk about unrelenting attacks. Look at what Justice Kavanaugh went through. They were making up stuff. They had people crawling out of the woodwork, accusing him of being a gang rapist. It's the most despicable attacks. And Senator Feinstein attacking some of the Amy Coney Barrett, some of the nominees for federal judge, not for the Supreme Court, but the federal bench, based on their religion. I mean, this is for Joe Biden. He ought to tell the Democrats to lay off the unfair attacks on Republicans before he says, I can't say who I might nominate because they could be the subject of unrelenting attacks. His people, his voters, know about unrelenting attacks. Yeah. They're real good at it.
Yeah, I remember what you talking about. Talking about dogma is inside of her or something like that. I mean, it's the attacks were there with Kavanaugh, and he had to endure a lot to go through that complete process there. But either way, there it is. You got to see the other side of it. Curtis Ellis joining us live to break it down. Curtis, thank you.
Thank you.
In-person school